Hi friends, Dylan here. This is a step-by-step process of how you should be reviewing your exam paper the moment you get back your script. And the reason why I developed this framework is because I found out that many of you, including myself, right, when we get back our paper, we do our correction, we file it away, only to be repeating the same mistake again in the next exam. And that is something that we want to avoid. Okay, so please pay attention to this attentively, right, because this has helped many of our students do very well, especially in their final examinations, in their O-levels examination. What determines the A1, the A2, B3, which I've shared, it is the amount of mistakes that you make, and we want to reduce that as much as possible so that all of you can get your A1s for mathematics. So over here, right, there are three main mistakes that we will make in the exam, right, and this is categorized to the three C's. Now, first and foremost, it is the careless mistake. Now, what is a careless mistake? A careless mistake are mistakes that, given more time, you could have avoided them. For instance, calculated something wrongly. For instance, you transferred something wrongly, or you see a number wrongly, 2 become a 3 become an 8. So if I would have given you 30 minutes more time, 40 minutes more time, 2 hours more time, right, if you were to redo the question, highly likely you could have avoided these errors. So a few examples over here, you can see that on the top left-hand corner, this is a HCF LCM question where you're supposed to break down this 11,025 into its index notation, but a student pressed something wrongly, calculated something wrongly. But could this student have avoided it? Absolutely, right? If I will ask the student to just go and recalculate again, I'm pretty confident that the student will have observed his, mistake. Now, bottom left, algebra 3x times 5y, a common, careless mistake when it comes to the multiplication, but definitely could have avoided it. Top right-hand corner, ascending, descending, right? Okay, and then, messing up with the calculation, and then expanding another algebra type of question. So you can see these are careless mistakes. Given more time, the student or yourself could have avoided them. So when you get your script, go and calculate how many marks have you lost due to careless mistake. Now, how do you avoid careless mistake? There are two things that you need to take note. Number one, an example over here is what we are doing now, which is we are compiling all the careless mistake made right on our day-to-day practices. And you can see on the left, this is a compilation in this entire chapter. And then in the screen over here, you can see these are the examples of the mistakes made by students. And then, we leave some comments as to these are the things you need to take note of. So imagine now, before you walk into the exam hall, you have this tiny little compiled notes, right? You will realize that things are very, very fresh. Because now, before the exam hall, you are looking, okay, these are the 10 mistakes I need to avoid in the exam. So this is very different from what many of you are doing right now. You don't have any compilation, you don't have any notes. You just maybe have your formula sheet and you go to the exam hall, right? Definitely, these errors are highly likely to be made because it's not fresh in your head, right? Versus another student, right, before you walk to the exam hall, you already have studied. These are the 7 mistakes in this chapter. These are the 8, 9, 10 mistakes I need to avoid. So when you're checking, when you're doing the question, you're a lot more sharper. Now, second way to avoid careless mistake is to have a framework on how to check your work, right? So we have many frameworks that we taught in our classes, but something that you need to take note is because many of us right now, upon completing your work, you'll find that, hey, you're just checking line by line, right? Just pressing a calculator, but not knowing how to check, what to do, what's the process, right? So you need a process so that you are sharper. There's a systematic way, right, to avoid and catch those mistakes. Okay, so go and find a way and apply it the moment you complete your exam paper. Now, next, second C stands for concept error. Now, what is the difference between a concept error versus a careless mistake? Okay, a concept error is something that if given more time, I give you 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, you still won't be able to do the question because fundamentally, there's a misconception. So I'll give you an example over here. If you can't solve Venn diagram, you do not know how to find the shaded region, even if I give you another 3 hours, another 3 days, right, without looking at the notes, you won't be able to solve it because fundamentally, there's a misconception. Right, on the right hand side, this is Sec 4 trigonometry, R formula, solving trigonometry. If you can't solve it, it means you can't solve it because you're not prepared. You didn't study it well, right? So these are concept errors. Think of the difference. So how do you avoid concept errors? So sorry to say that, right? You need to go and unlearn and relearn all these concepts again, right? So March holiday is coming up. Please spend the time, right, to get and rework on these fundamentals, right, so that in the next upcoming exam, right, you are a lot stronger, right? Take note, concept errors are things that should have already gone through in class. These are not out of the world question, right? As compared to the next and final C, which is our complex question. So complex questions are questions that you haven't seen it before on the day-to-day practices, right? Because it's weird, it's an application type of question, it's an explanation question, right? And you know that, hey, if I look through all my homework questions or all my assessment books, right, likely I haven't seen this style of question before. So I picked out an example, right? This is slightly harder. This came from a prelim paper. And many of the students, when they encounter this, they are unlikely able to solve it because this is something new and they have yet to see it before. Okay, so how do you solve a complex question, right, during the exam? Very simple. You need exposure in your day-to-day practices, right? And I call this process a hunting process. A hunting process means that in your day-to-day practice, right, especially you're leading up to the exam, you have 20 exam papers, 30 exam papers, and you're hunting for challenging questions, weird questions, out of the norm questions, right? And then, pulling it into your arsenal, right? So at the end of the day, what you'll notice that is this video, right, is teaching you to compile, right, your mistakes, right, based on the 3 C's, whether it's careless mistake, whether it's concept errors, whether it's complex question, right? So this example, right, this is something that I'm building right now. It's behind the scene, right, that we are working for our students. But, if you're not in Paradigm, you can do it for yourself as well. Just go to Popular and buy an assessment book, right, and then start compiling in your day-to-day practice. Whenever you encounter a careless mistake, note it down. Whenever there's some conceptual mistake, go and note it down. Whenever you encounter a very challenging question, go and note it down. So that before the exam, now, you're super clear. These are the 3 things, right, that you want to be very, very mindful about. Right, and of course, now you have your exam script. Go and note down how many mistakes have you made from careless mistakes, how many errors made from concept errors, how many marks lost from complex question. Go and count so that you know that, okay, out of the 40 marks, I scored 23, I lost 17 marks. Okay, this proportion came from here, this proportion came from here, this proportion came from here. Now you know how to improve in the next exam. If you are making a lot of careless mistake, then you need to go and compile and have a system to check. If you are making a lot of concept errors, things that have really went through in class, but yeah, you can't do it, then you need to go and unlearn and relearn all these concepts again. If you're losing a lot of marks, complex question, which is supposed to be unlikely, probably 1 or 2 questions, then in your next upcoming exam, please go and expose yourself to this kind of weird, out of the norm questions. Okay, so I hope this helps, right? This is really, really essential because this is the key strategy that we teach our students and help them to, score well and avoid errors during the exam. So take your notes, and then if there's any questions, feel free to ask me below, and I wish you all the best. Enjoy March holidays, and I'll catch you in the next video.